a spilled cup of tea, a single apology. One moment that changes everything. When temp worker Imani Lewis splashes water on billionaire CEO Dominic Crane, she fears she's lost her job, but Dominic sees something in her that no one else has. Before we get into the story, comment below where in the world you are watching from today. Imani Lewis rushed through the crowded subway station, checking her watch for the third time in 5 minutes. She couldn't be late again. 3 tardy marks in 1 month, and her temp agency would find someone else to fill her position at Crane International. Someone more reliable, they'd say. Someone without a 13-year-old daughter who needed braces and a science fair project due next week. "Excuse me," she said, squeezing past a group of tourists. Her sensible black shoes clicked against the tile as she broke into a jog up the stairs. The Crane International building loomed ahead, all glass and steel reaching into the sky. Imani smoothed her simple navy dress and adjusted her ID badge before stepping through the revolving doors. "Morning, Miss Lewis," said George, the security guard. His kind smile was one of the few friendly faces she encountered in this building. "Good morning, George. Beautiful day, isn't it?" She hurried toward the service elevator, the one reserved for maintenance staff, kitchen workers, and temps like her who refilled tea caddies and kept the executive floor spotless. In the employees' locker room, Imani quickly changed into her uniform, a crisp white shirt and black pants with a Crane International housekeeping badge. Her supervisor, Mrs. Reynolds, was waiting with a clipboard and a frown. "You're cutting it close, Lewis." "Sorry, Mrs. Reynolds. The subway, I don't need excuses. I need punctuality." Mrs. Reynolds tapped her clipboard. "Executive floor needs service by 10. Mr. Crane is having an important board meeting at 11. Imani nodded. "I'll take care of it." "See that you do, and remember, invisibility is key. They're discussing the Peterson merger today. Very hush-hush." Mrs. Reynolds lowered her voice. "You know the drill. In and out like a ghost." When Mrs. Reynolds walked away, Tamika, another temp worker, sidled up to Imani with a sympathetic smile. "Don't mind her. She's extra tense because the big boss is back from his London trip." "Is he as bad as everyone says?" Imani asked, loading her cart. With supplies, Tamika's eyes widened. "Worse. Dominic Crane fired the head of marketing last month because his presentation had a typo. One typo. And Jenny from accounting says he once made his assistant cry because she brought him coffee in a mug with a hairline crack." Imani shook her head. "Well, I don't plan on getting anywhere near him. I'm just here to do my job, get my paycheck and go home to Maya. How is your daughter doing with those new braces?" "Still adjusting, but this job is worth every minute just to see her smile without covering her mouth." Imani checked her cart. "I better get upstairs." The executive floor was a different world, all marble, mahogany, and hushed conversations. Imani moved quietly, restocking the break rooms and wiping down surfaces. She could hear voices from the main conference room growing louder as the hour approached for the big meeting. As she finished the East Wing break room, Imani checked her watch. She had just enough time to restock the tea caddy in the private lounge, adjacent to the conference room before the executives arrived. She pushed her cart down the hallway, careful to stay close to the wall as men and women in expensive suits hurried past without noticing her. The private lounge was empty when she entered. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a breathtaking view of the city, and leather chairs were arranged around small tables. Imani worked efficiently, replacing tea bags and coffee pods and making sure everything was spotless. She was just filling the electric kettle when she heard the door open. Did operations send over those quarterly reports yet? The deep voice made her freeze. She didn't need to turn around to know who it was. The entire building recognized that cold, precise tone. "They should be on your desk now, sir," replied a nervous female voice, probably his assistant. "Should be." "I don't pay for should be, Amanda. I pay for results." "Yes, Mr. Crane, I'll check right away." Imani kept her head down, focusing on her task. Maybe if she stayed still enough, they wouldn't notice her. But the kettle chose that moment to click off loudly, announcing it had boiled. "Who is that?" The sharp question made Imani's heart jump. Just housekeeping, sir," Amanda replied. Imani turned slowly, facing them for the first time. Dominic Crane was taller than she'd imagined, with broad shoulders perfectly outlined by his tailored grey suit. His face was handsome in a severe way. Sharp cheekbones, strong jaw, and piercing dark eyes that seemed to analyze everything they landed on. He couldn't be more than early 40s, but the intensity in his gaze made him seem older, more formidable. "The meeting starts in 15 minutes," he said to his assistant. "Make sure everyone is there, no excuses." "Yes, Mr. Crane." As the assistant scurried away, Dominic Crane turned his attention to Imani. She felt like a specimen under a microscope. "I haven't seen you before," he said. "I'm new, sir." "Well, 3 months new, with the temp agency." Imani hated how her voice shook slightly. He nodded, his expression unreadable. "The tea service needs to be ready when we break for lunch." "Yes, sir. I'll make sure everything is perfect." He stared at her for a moment longer, then walked to the window, his back to her, as he gazed out at the city below. Imani took the opportunity to finish her work, carefully arranging cups and saucers on a tray. Her phone vibrated in her pocket, a text message. She shouldn't check it, not here, not now, but it might be Maya's school. With Mr. Crane still. Looking out the window, she quickly glanced at her phone. It was Maya. "Mom forgot lunch money. Can you transfer? Love you." Imani sighed quietly. She'd have to transfer the money during her break, which meant skipping her own lunch today. But that's what mothers did. They made it work somehow. She slipped her phone back into her pocket and reached for the kettle to move it to the proper place. But her hands were trembling slightly, from nerves, from Dominic Crane's intimidating presence, from the constant worry about making ends meet. The kettle slipped in her grasp, and before she could catch it properly, hot water splashed over the rim, right onto Dominic Crane's suit jacket sleeve as he turned from the window. Time seemed to stop. Droplets of water darkened the expensive grey fabric. Steam rose between them. Imani gasped in horror. "Oh my God, I'm so sorry, sir." She grabbed a cloth and stepped forward, then froze, not daring to touch him. He looked down at his sleeve, then at her. His face was impossible to read. "I'm so sorry," she stammered. "I can pay for the cleaning bill. She stopped, realizing how ridiculous that sounded. Her entire day's wages wouldn't cover the dry cleaning for his custom suit. But Dominic Crane wasn't yelling. He wasn't calling for her supervisor. He was just looking at her, his dark eyes fixed on her face with an expression she couldn't understand. He blinked, as if coming out of a trance. "It's fine," he said, his voice oddly quiet. "Sir, I said it's fine." He used his handkerchief to dab at the wet spot. "It's just water." Imani backed away, still horrified. "I'll get you a towel. Don't bother." He checked his watch. "The meeting is starting." He walked past her without another word, leaving Imani standing there, her heart pounding. She'd spilled hot water on Dominic Crane. The Dominic Crane. The man who reportedly fired people for using the wrong font in emails. And yet he'd barely reacted. The rest of the day passed in a blur of anxiety. Imani kept waiting for Mrs. Reynolds to appear, termination notice in hand. But hours went by and nothing happened. She serviced the other floors, avoiding the executive level entirely. At 5 o'clock, Imani changed back into her street clothes, still puzzled by her strange encounter. "You look like you've seen a ghost," Tamika said as they gathered their things. "Worse?" "I spilled hot water on Dominic Crane's suit." Tamika's jaw dropped. "You what? And you're still here? With a job?" "I know, it's weird. He just looked at me, then said it was fine." "Dominic Iceman Crane said it was fine? Are you sure it was him and not his nicer twin brother?" Imani shrugged. "Trust me, it was him. I've never been so terrified in my life." "Well, count your blessings and hope he forgets your face by tomorrow." But as Imani rode the subway home, she couldn't shake the feeling that something strange had happened in that moment, something she didn't understand. The way he'd looked at her wasn't anger or annoyance. It was almost like recognition, which was impossible. Men like Dominic Crane didn't see women like her. They looked through them, past them, around them, but never at them. The apartment was quiet when Imani got home. She found Maya at the kitchen table, math textbook open, music playing softly through her earbuds. "Hey, sweetie," Imani said, kissing the top of her daughter's head. Maya pulled out her earbuds and smiled, still self-conscious about her new braces. "How was work?" Oh, you know, same as always. No need to tell her daughter about nearly getting fired. Did you get the lunch money I sent? Yeah, thanks. Sorry about that. It's okay. That's what mums are for. Imani set her purse down and opened the refrigerator. Spaghetti tonight. Sounds good. Oh, and Miss Peterson said my science project idea is really creative. She thinks I might have a shot at the top prize. That's wonderful, Imani beamed. Maya was smart, so much smarter than she'd been at that age. With the right opportunities, her daughter could go anywhere, be anything. That's what kept Imani going, what made every long day worth it. Later that night, after Maya was asleep, Imani sat at their small kitchen table with a cup of tea, reviewing bills. The braces payment, the science project supplies, the rent due, next week. She massaged her temples, trying to make the numbers work. Her phone buzzed with a text from her sister. You okay? You seemed stressed when we talked yesterday. Imani typed back, I'm fine, just the usual juggling act. Nearly lost my job today, but crisis averted. Her sister responded immediately. What happened? Spilled tea on the CEO's suit. Somehow didn't. Get fired. Small miracles. Must be your winning personality. Or maybe he's secretly human. Imani smiled and put her phone down. The idea of Dominic Crane being human, with actual feelings, seemed far-fetched based on everything she'd heard. And yet, there had been something in his eyes today. Something unexpected. She shook her head, dismissing the thought. Men like him lived in a different universe. Tomorrow he wouldn't even remember her name, if he'd ever known it at all. Dominic. Crane sat in his penthouse office, staring at his computer screen without seeing it. Financial reports and acquisition proposals waited for his review, but his mind kept drifting back to the woman in the break room. The way she'd looked at him. With fear, yes, but also with something else. Sincerity. When she'd apologized, she'd meant it. Not because he was the CEO, not because she was afraid for her job, but because she genuinely felt bad about causing him discomfort. When was the last time anyone had looked at him that way? Like he was a person, not a position. He couldn't remember. Dominic loosened his tie and turned to the window. The city sparkled below, millions of lights, millions of lives. Somewhere out there was the woman from today, living her life, probably never giving him a second thought, but he couldn't stop thinking about her. The way her hands had trembled, the text message she'd tried to hide, something about lunch, money, the simple gold band she wore on her right hand, not her left. A widow, perhaps? He pulled up the employee database on his computer. Temporary staff would be listed under the agency contracts. He scrolled through names and faces until he found her. Imani Lewis, 35 years old, employed through Paramount. Staffing. Started 3 months ago. Dominic stared at her ID photo. In it, she wasn't frightened or apologetic. She was simply looking into the camera with clear, direct eyes. Without quite knowing why, he picked up his phone and called his head of Human Resources. Davidson, I need information on one of our temporary staff, Imani Lewis. Is there a problem, sir? Dominic paused. No problem. Just get me her file, the complete one. I want it tomorrow morning. He hung up before Davidson could ask any more questions. Then he glanced down at his sleeve, where a faint water stain was still visible on the expensive fabric. For the first time in years, Dominic Crane smiled slightly, and he had no idea why. The next morning, Imani arrived at Crane International, with knots in her stomach. Despite yesterday's reprieve, she still worried that Mr. Crane might have reconsidered her clumsiness and decided to have her removed after all. But Mrs. Reynolds had no termination notice waiting, just the usual daily assignments. East Wing break rooms, then the conference rooms on 42, she said, not looking up from her clipboard. And the executive lounge needs a complete restock by noon. Imani's stomach tightened. The executive lounge? Is there someone else who could do that today? Mrs. Reynolds finally looked up, eyebrows raised. Is there a problem with your assignment, Miss Lewis? No problem. I'll take care of it. She pushed her cart toward the service elevator, her mind racing. Maybe Mr. Crane wouldn't be there. Maybe he'd be in meetings all day or traveling, or anywhere but the executive lounge where she'd embarrassed herself yesterday. The morning passed quickly as Imani worked her way through the regular assignments. At 11:30, she could delay no longer. The executive lounge needed restocking, and it was her job to do it. She took a deep breath and pushed her cart down the hallway, nearly colliding with Amanda, Dominic Crane's assistant. "Oh, I'm sorry," Imani said automatically. Amanda looked stressed, clutching a tablet to her chest. "It's fine, just be careful in there today. He's in a mood." Imani's heart sank. "Mr. Crane is in the lounge?" "Yes, and he specifically said not to be disturbed, but the Peterson team is arriving at one, and that lounge needs to be perfect." Amanda lowered her voice. "Just be quick and quiet. Like a mouse." "Right. A mouse." Imani forced a smile as Amanda hurried away. The lounge door was closed. Imani knocked softly, then pushed the door open just enough to slip inside with her cart. Dominic Crane sat at the far end of the room, his back to her, papers spread across the table in front of him. He was on the phone, his voice clipped and authoritative. "The numbers don't add up, Peterson. You promised 7% growth and these projections show 5 at best. Fix it before our meeting or don't bother coming." He ended the call and set his phone down with a controlled precision that somehow seemed more threatening than if he'd slammed it. Imani tried to make herself invisible as she quietly began restocking the tea caddy. Maybe if she was silent enough, quick enough, he wouldn't even notice her. "Miss Lewis," her hands froze on the tea bags. He knew her name. How did he know her name? "Yes, sir," she said, turning slowly to face him. Dominic Crane had stood up and was watching her with those intense dark eyes. Today his suit was navy blue, impeccably tailored to his tall frame. "You have a daughter," he said. It wasn't a question. Imani blinked in surprise. "Yes, sir, Maya, she's 13, and she needed lunch money yesterday." The floor seemed to shift beneath Imani's feet. How could he possibly know that? Yes. She forgot her lunch money. Her voice was barely above a whisper. Dominic walked closer, stopping a few feet away from her. "You work 2 jobs to support her, this one and evening shifts at the Silver Diner 3 nights a week." Now Imani was truly alarmed. "Mr. Crane, I don't understand. How do you—" "I had your file pulled. You're a widow. Your husband died 4 years ago. Military service." 5 years, she corrected automatically, then immediately regretted speaking. "I'm sorry, but may I ask why you're interested in my personal information?" He seemed to consider this question seriously. "I'm not entirely sure," he admitted, surprising her. "Perhaps because you're the first person in this building who has apologized to me and actually meant it." Imani didn't know how to respond to that. Dominic Crane was nothing like the rumors described. His voice wasn't cold now. It was thoughtful, almost curious. "I frightened you yesterday," he continued. "Everyone is afraid of you, Mr. Crane." The words slipped out before she could stop them. Instead of being offended, he nodded slowly. "Yes, that's generally the way I prefer it." He paused. "But not with you." The statement hung in the air between them. Imani's heart was racing. This made no sense. What could the CEO of Crane International possibly want with her? "Sir, I should finish my work. Your meeting, have lunch with me." The words were abrupt, almost like an order. Imani stared at him. What?" "Lunch, today, with me." His confidence seemed to waver slightly, which was so unexpected that Imani almost gasped. "Unless you'd rather not." "Mr. Crane, I don't understand. Why would you want to have lunch with me?" He looked genuinely puzzled by the question. "Because I find you interesting, Miss Lewis. But I'm just, She gestured at her uniform, her cart full of cleaning supplies. "A woman who works 2 jobs to support her daughter, who apologizes when she makes a mistake, who worries about paying for braces." His eyes held hers. "I find that far more interesting than another executive trying to impress me with golf stories. And stock tips." Imani felt dizzy. This couldn't be happening. People will talk, let them. Mrs. Reynolds works for me, ultimately, as does everyone in this building. Imani took a deep breath. "Mr. Crane, with all due respect, this is very unexpected. I'm not sure what to say." "Say yes." For a moment, something almost vulnerable flickered in his eyes. "Please." That, "please," so unexpected from a man like him, was what did it. Against her better judgment, Imani nodded. Yes, okay, lunch? The smile that transformed his face was like watching ice melt in the sun. Suddenly, Dominic Crane wasn't intimidating at all. He was just a man, looking at her like she'd given him an unexpected gift. Good, he said simply. I'll meet you in the lobby at 12:30. As Imani pushed her cart out of the lounge, her mind was spinning. Had she really just agreed to have lunch with Dominic Crane, the man everyone feared, the man who could fire her with a single word? She had no idea what would happen next. But for the first time in years, Imani felt something unfamiliar stirring in her chest. Hope. Imani stood in the lobby of Crane International, checking her watch nervously. It was 12:28. She had changed out of her work uniform into the simple black dress she kept in her locker for emergencies. It wasn't fancy, but it was the best she could do. People hurried past, giving her curious glances. She didn't belong here, in the main lobby with its marble floors and modern art. She belonged in the service corridors, invisible. You look nice. She turned to find Dominic Crane standing behind her. He had removed his suit jacket, and his crisp white shirt made his tan skin look even warmer. Thank you, she said, smoothing her dress self-consciously. This is all I had with me. It's perfect. He gestured toward the door. There's a small restaurant around the corner. Unless you'd prefer something else, and that sounds fine. Imani followed him outside, acutely aware of the stares following them. Dominic Crane never ate lunch with employees, especially not temp workers. D. Restaurant was a quiet, upscale place with white tablecloths and soft music. The maitre d' clearly recognized Dominic. Mr. Crane, your usual table is ready. They were seated in a private corner booth. Imani picked up the menu and nearly gasped at the prices. Her entire daily wage wouldn't cover 2 entrees here. Dominic noticed her expression. Order whatever you'd like, please. Why am I here, Mr. Crane? Imani asked, setting down the menu. He considered her question. Directness. That's refreshing. He leaned forward slightly. You're here because I want to know more about you. There's not much to know. I'm a widow raising a daughter, working 2 jobs to make ends meet. Tell me about your daughter. The request surprised her. Maya? She's 13, brilliant, gets straight A's despite everything. She wants to be a doctor someday? And her father? Imani's expression softened with sadness. James died 5 years ago, Afghanistan. He was a Marine. I'm sorry for your loss. Thank you. She studied his face, searching for hidden motives. Now it's my turn. Why does the CEO of Crane International want to have lunch with someone like me? Someone like you, he repeated thoughtfully. What do you think that means? Someone insignificant. A temp worker. A single mom struggling to pay bills. Dominic shook his head. That's not what I see. What do you see? Someone real. He said it so simply that Imani felt a flutter in her chest. Do you know how rare that is in my world? Everyone wants something from me. Everyone puts on a performance, but you... He paused. When you apologized yesterday, it wasn't because I'm the CEO. It was because you genuinely felt bad about what happened. The waiter arrived with water and they ordered, Imani choosing the least expensive salad, Dominic not even glancing at the menu as he ordered his usual. People say you're ruthless, Imani said when the waiter left. That you fired. Someone over a typo. A small smile curved his lips. I fired the head of marketing because he was embezzling company funds. The typo was in his offshore account transfer. Oh. Imani felt her cheeks warm. And the assistant with the chipped mug? I never fired anyone over a coffee mug, but I did. Replaced my assistant's entire china set when I noticed a crack. It was a choking hazard. Imani laughed softly. So the rumors aren't true. Some are, some aren't. His dark eyes held hers. I'm not an easy man to work for. I have high standards. But I'm not a monster. Their food arrived, and Imani was surprised by how comfortable she felt as they ate. Dominic asked about Maya's school, about Imani's hopes for her daughter's future. He listened intently to every answer. And what about you, he asked. What are your dreams? The question caught her off guard. My dreams? I don't know. I haven't thought about myself like that in a long time. Everything is for Maya. Before. Maya, before James, what did you want? Imani looked down at her plate. I was studying education. I wanted to teach. Why didn't you finish? Life happened. Maya came along, then James died. Bills piled up. She shrugged. Dreams get put on hold sometimes. Or changed, Dominic said quietly. Their lunch stretched to nearly 2 hours, longer than Imani's break allowed. When she mentioned this, Dominic simply said, I'll take care of it. As they walked back to the building, Imani felt lighter than she had in years. There was something about Dominic Crane that wasn't at all what she'd expected. Behind his powerful exterior was a man who seemed genuinely interested in her life, her thoughts. Thank you for lunch, she said as they reached the lobby. Thank you for saying yes. He hesitated, then added, I'd like to do it again. Imani knew she should say no. This was her workplace. He was the CEO. Nothing good could come from blurring these lines, but instead she heard herself say, I'd like that too. His smile was warm, transforming his usually serious face. Tomorrow then. As he walked toward the executive elevator, Imani couldn't help but watch him go. What was happening here? Whatever it was, it felt dangerous, and yet she couldn't bring herself to care. When Imani returned to the employee locker room, Tamika was waiting with wide eyes. You had lunch with Dominic Crane? The Dominic Crane? Are you insane? Imani sighed. News travels fast. Girl Amanda from the executive floor texted her cousin in accounting, who told her friend in HR, who called me immediately. What were you thinking? He asked. I said yes. Imani changed back into her uniform. It was just lunch. Just lunch? With the most eligible bachelor in the city? The man owns half of downtown. It wasn't like that. Tamika leaned closer. What was it like then? Imani thought about it. Nice. He was nice. Dominic Crane doesn't do nice. He does mergers and acquisitions. Before Imani could respond, Mrs. Reynolds appeared in the doorway, her face tight with disapproval. Miss Lewis. A word. Imani followed her supervisor to the small office at the end of the hall, her stomach knotting with anxiety. Explain yourself, Mrs. Reynolds said when the door closed behind them. I'm not sure what. Don't play dumb. You were seen having lunch with Mr. Crane for 2 hours. She crossed her arms. Do you know how this looks? A temp worker and the CEO? He invited me. I accepted. It was just lunch. Nothing is just anything with a man like Dominic Crane. Mrs. Reynolds narrowed her eyes. Listen carefully. Men in his position sometimes amuse themselves with women in yours. Don't mistake attention for interest. The words stung, but Imani kept her face neutral. Is that all, Mrs. Reynolds? For now, but consider this a warning. Don't get ideas above your station, Miss Lewis. It never ends well. The rest of the day passed in a blur of whispers and stares. By the time Imani left work, she was exhausted. From the weight of the attention. Maybe Mrs. Reynolds was right. Maybe this was all some kind of game to Dominic Crane. Her phone buzzed as she waited for the subway. A text from an unknown number. Thank you for lunch. You made my day better. DC Imani stared at the message, a small smile forming despite herself. How had he gotten her number? She thought about responding but decided against it. She needed time to think. When she arrived home, Maya was in the kitchen attempting to make dinner. The smell of burned tomato sauce filled the apartment. Mom! I tried to surprise you, but I think I messed up the recipe. Imani laughed, hugging her daughter. It's the thought that counts. Let's order pizza instead. Later, as they sat at their small kitchen table eating pizza, Maya looked up from her homework. Mom, why do you look different today? Different? How? Maya studied her. I don't know, you're smiling more. Did something good happen? Imani hesitated. I had lunch with someone today. Someone unexpected. Like a date? Maya's eyes widened with interest. No, not a date. Just lunch. Imani took a sip of water. He's actually my boss. Well, the boss of everyone, really. Is he nice? The simple question made Imani think. Yes, I think he is, in his own way. Maya grinned. Is he cute? Maya, that's not... I mean... Imani felt her cheeks warm. He's very successful and serious. But is he cute? Maya persisted. Imani rolled her eyes. Eat your pizza, nosy. But long after Maya went to bed, Imani found herself thinking about Dominic Crane. His intense, dark eyes, the way he listened when she spoke, the surprising gentleness beneath his powerful exterior. Yes, he was attractive, but that wasn't what had captured her attention. It was the way he had seen her, really seen her, when everyone else looked right through. The next morning, a simple white envelope was waiting in Imani's locker. Inside was a note written in strong, precise handwriting. Same place for lunch? DC Imani tucked the note into her pocket, a small thrill running through her. She had told herself all night that she would decline if he asked again. That getting involved with Dominic Crane in any way was a bad idea. That people like her didn't mix with people like him, but when lunchtime came, she found herself waiting in the lobby again, wearing the same black dress. And again, Dominic appeared exactly on time, but today, instead of the restaurant, he led her to a sleek black car waiting outside. "I thought we might try something different," he said, opening the door for her. Imani hesitated. "Where are we going?" "A place I think you'll like. Trust me." Against her better judgment, she got into the car. They drove for 15 minutes, leaving the corporate downtown area for a quieter neighborhood of brownstones and small parks. The car stopped in front of a cozy cafe with books lining the walls and small tables scattered throughout. "What is this place?" Imani asked as they entered. "The owner is an old friend. They make the best soup in the city and—" Dominic gestured to the bookshelves. "I thought you might enjoy the atmosphere. You mentioned you loved reading." Imani was touched that he'd remembered such a small detail from their conversation yesterday. The cafe was warm and inviting, nothing like the formal restaurant they'd visited before. A friendly older woman greeted Dominic with a hug. "Nikki, it's been too long." "Nikki?" Imani bit back a smile at the nickname. "Sophia. This is Imani Lewis." Sophia looked Imani up and down, then beamed. "She's lovely, Nikki. Your usual table is waiting." As they sat down at a corner table surrounded by books, Imani raised an eyebrow. "Nikki?" Dominic actually looked embarrassed. "Sophia has known me since I was 10. She refuses to call me anything else." "I like it. It makes you seem more human." "Is that how you see me, as not human?" Imani considered the question. "The Dominic Crane from the rumors isn't human. He's more like a force of nature, powerful, intimidating, cold." She met his eyes. "But you're not really like that, are you?" "Sometimes I am," he admitted. "My position demands it, but not with everyone, not with you." The way he said "not with you" made Imani's heart beat faster. This was dangerous territory. "Why me?" she asked softly. "Of all the people you could be having lunch with, why me?" Dominic was quiet for a moment. "I've been asking myself the same question. The best answer I have is that you remind me of something I've lost. Something real." Before she could respond, Sophia returned with 2 bowls of soup and fresh bread. The conversation shifted to lighter topics as they ate. Books they'd read, places they'd visited. Dominic told her about growing up in this neighborhood before. His father's business took off. Imani shared stories about Maya's science projects. Time slipped away again, and Imani realized they'd been talking for nearly 2 hours. "I should get back," she said reluctantly. Of course, Dominic paid the bill despite Sophia's protests that it was on the house. As they walked to the car, he asked, "Does your daughter have plans this weekend?" The question surprised Imani. "Nothing special. Why?" "There's a science exhibition at the Natural History Museum. New technologies, interactive displays. I thought she might enjoy it." He paused. "Both of you might enjoy it." Imani stopped walking. "Are you asking to meet my daughter?" "Is that too forward?" It was. It absolutely was. This wasn't just lunch, between colleagues anymore. This was something else entirely. "Dominic, I don't know if that's a good idea. This is all happening very fast, and I'm not sure what this even is." He nodded slowly. "I understand it was presumptuous of me. It's not that I don't want to, it's just complicated. You're my boss, technically, and Maya, she hasn't met anyone I've—" Imani trailed off, unsure how to finish the sentence. "Anyone you've what?" His voice was gentle but pressed for an answer. "Anyone I've been interested in," she finally said, meeting his eyes, "since her father died." The admission hung between them, changing the air. Dominic took a step closer to her, close enough that she could smell his cologne. "Are you interested in me, Imani?" Her heart pounded. "I shouldn't be." "That's not what I asked." She took a deep breath. "Yes, and it terrifies me." His expression softened. "It terrifies me too." "You? What could possibly terrify Dominic Crane?" "The way you make me feel, like I want to be better than I am." He reached out slowly and took her hand, giving her plenty of time to pull away. She didn't. "I haven't felt this way in a very long time." The touch of his hand on hers sent warmth spreading up Imani's arm. This was madness. They came from different worlds. It could never work. And yet, one day at a time, she said softly. "Let's just take this one day at a time." He smiled, that same transformative smile that made him look younger, more approachable. "Does that mean you'll have lunch with me again? Tomorrow?" "Yes, but no more 2-hour breaks. Mrs. Reynolds already gave me a warning." "I'll talk to her." "No," Imani said quickly. "Please don't. That would only make things worse. Let me handle it my way." Dominic looked like he wanted to argue, but nodded. "As you wish." The drive back to Crane International was quiet, but comfortable. When they arrived, Dominic walked her to the service entrance, away from prying eyes. "Thank you for today," he said. "Thank you for the soup. And the books." Imani smiled. "I'll see you tomorrow." As she walked back to her cart and her duties, Imani couldn't help but feel that her life had somehow shifted on its axis. 2 days ago, Dominic Crane had been a name that inspired fear and respect. Now he was a man who held her hand and asked about her daughter. Whatever was happening between them, Imani knew one thing for certain. She was stepping into uncharted territory, and there was no map to guide her. Dominic sat in his office, unable to focus on the acquisition proposal in front of him. His thoughts kept returning to Imani, her smile, her honesty, the way her eyes lit up when she talked about her daughter. A knock at the door interrupted his thoughts. "Come in," he called. Alexander Jensen, the head of the board and Dominic's oldest friend, entered with a concerned expression. "We need to talk." "About?" "This." Alexander tossed a tabloid on Dominic's desk. On the cover was a grainy photo of Dominic and Imani leaving the restaurant yesterday with the headline, "Crane's new fling billionaire CEO dating employee." Dominic's jaw tightened. "Vultures. What the hell are you doing, Dom? A temp worker, do you know how this looks?" "I don't care how it looks." Alexander ran a hand through his silver hair. "Well, you should. The Peterson merger is hanging by a thread. The board is nervous, and now this?" He jabbed a finger at the photo. "It's reckless. Having lunch is reckless. Don't play dumb. It doesn't suit you." Alexander sat down across from Dominic. "Look, I get it. She's pretty. But there are 1,000 pretty women in this city who don't work for you, who don't create a potential PR nightmare." Dominic's voice turned cold. "Are you finished?" "No, I'm not. The company's stock dipped 2 points this morning. Peterson called me personally to ask if you were stable." His exact word. "Peterson can go to hell. And take the merger with him? That's $300 million, Dom, all because you couldn't keep it in your pants?" Dominic stood abruptly, his eyes flashing with anger. "Careful, Alex, very careful." Alexander held up his hands in surrender. "I'm not the enemy here. I'm looking out for you, like I always have. If you want to date someone, fine, but be smart about it. End whatever this is with the temp, and I'll set you up with Caroline Mitchell. She's beautiful, from a good family, and most importantly, not your employee." "I'm not interested in Caroline Mitchell. You haven't even met her." "I don't need to." Dominic walked to the window, his back to his friend. "I'm having lunch with Imani again today and tomorrow, and the day after that if she'll have me." Alexander sighed heavily. "The board won't like this. The board works for me, not the other way around, for now." The words hung ominously in the air. "Don't say I didn't warn you, Dom." After Alexander left, Dominic picked up the tabloid, studying the photo. Imani would hate this. She valued her privacy, her dignity, and now she was being dragged into the spotlight because of him. He pulled out his phone to warn her, then hesitated. Telling her about the article might scare her away, make her end whatever was growing between them before it had a chance to. No, he decided. He would tell her in person at lunch. He would apologize for the unwanted attention and promise to protect her from it as much as possible. Because the truth was, Dominic couldn't remember the last time he'd felt this way about anyone. Imani Lewis had awakened something in him. Something he'd thought was long dead, and he wasn't willing to let it go. Not for Alexander, not for the board, not for anyone. Imani was changing back into her uniform after lunch with Dominic when she heard whispers and giggles from the other temps. She ignored them until Tamika rushed in, her face flushed with excitement. "Oh my God, Imani, have you seen it?" "Seen what?" Tamika thrust her phone forward. On the screen was a gossip website with a photo of Imani and Dominic walking out of the restaurant yesterday. The headline screamed, "Dominic Crane's latest conquest from boardroom to bedroom." Imani felt the blood drain from her face. "What is this?" "It's everywhere. You're famous." Tamika bounced on her toes. "What's it like?" "Is he as intense in private as he is at work? Does he have a penthouse? Oh my God, does he have a helicopter?" "Stop it!" Imani's voice was sharp. "It's not like that. We're just friends." "Friends? Girl, Dominic Crane doesn't have friends, especially not female friends who look at him the way you do in this picture." Imani glanced at the photo again and was dismayed to see the admiration clearly visible on her face. This is a nightmare, a hot nightmare, with a billionaire. Tamika nudged her. "Seriously, though, are you okay?" "People are talking. Let them talk. There's nothing to tell." But even as she said it, Imani knew it wasn't entirely true. There was something between her and Dominic, something new and fragile and unnamed, but definitely something. As she pushed her cart through the hallway, Imani felt eyes following her. People whispered as she passed. A group of executives near the elevator fell silent when they saw her, their expressions a mix of curiosity and disdain. This was exactly what she'd feared. The attention, the gossip, the judgment. Her phone buzzed, with a text from Dominic. "Can we meet earlier? I need to talk to you," she responded quickly. "Same place in 10? "Yes, thank you." When Imani arrived at their usual meeting spot in the lobby, Dominic was already waiting. His face was grim. "You've seen it," she said, "not a question." "Yes." "I'm so sorry, Imani. This is my fault." "It's not your fault. It's those vultures with cameras." He guided her to a quiet corner of the lobby. "This is what happens in my world. Everything is public. Everything is scrutinized." He ran a hand through his dark hair. "I should have been more careful, more discreet." "Are you ashamed to be seen?" "With me?" The question came out before she could stop it. "God, no." His response was immediate and fierce. "Never think that. He hesitated. "I wanted to protect you from this ugliness, and I failed." Imani took a deep breath. "Dominic, maybe we should take a step back. This is all happening so fast, and now with the media involved. Is that what you want?" His eyes searched hers, vulnerable in a way she'd never seen before. "I don't know what I want." It was the honest truth. "This is all so new and confusing. You're Dominic Crane. I'm a temp worker and a single mom. Our worlds don't mix." They could. The simple statement hung between them, full of possibility. "How?" she asked softly. Before he could answer, Mrs. Reynolds appeared at Imani's side, her face tight with disapproval. "Miss Lewis, you need to return to your duties immediately." Dominic straightened to his full height, his CEO persona sliding into place like armor. "Mrs. Reynolds, Imani is on her break. Her break ended 20 minutes ago, Mr. Crane. And with all due respect, sir, the cleaning schedule doesn't stop for personal matters." Imani touched Dominic's arm lightly. "It's okay, she's right. I need to get back to work." The conflict in his eyes was clear, but he nodded. "We'll talk later." As Imani followed Mrs. Reynolds back to the service elevator, she could feel Dominic watching her go. The weight of his gaze was both comforting and terrifying, because despite everything, the gossip, the differences in their worlds, the complications, Imani Lewis was falling for Dominic Crane. And there was nothing simple about that at all. "This stops now," Mrs. Reynolds said when they were alone in the elevator. Whatever game you're playing with Mr. Crane, it ends today. It's not a game. Then you're even more foolish than I thought. Mrs. Reynolds's voice dripped with contempt. Men like him don't marry women like us, Imani. They use us and discard us. Remember your place. The words stung, but Imani lifted her chin. My place is wherever I choose it to be, Mrs. Reynolds. Your place is where your contract says it is. Cleaning bathrooms and filling tea caddies. Mrs. Reynolds narrowed her eyes. Unless you'd prefer to be reassigned to a different building, Paramount Staffing has many clients who would appreciate your services. The threat was clear. Play by the rules or lose your job. For Maya's sake, Imani couldn't afford to be unemployed. The braces payments, the rent, the dream of college someday. I understand, she said quietly. Good, I'm glad we could clear that up. Mrs. Reynolds handed her a stack of fresh towels. The executive bathrooms need attention. Now. As Imani worked. Through the afternoon, her mind raced with conflicting emotions. Part of her wanted to run away from this complicated situation, back to the safety of invisibility. But another part, a part that had been dormant for 5 years, wanted to see where this path with Dominic might lead. By the end of her shift, Imani had made a decision. She would tell Dominic that they needed to slow down. No more lunches, no more tabloid photos. Just time to think, to breathe, to decide what she really wanted. When she checked her phone in the locker room, there was a message waiting from Dominic. I have a late meeting. Can we talk tomorrow? This is important to me. You are important. To me, Imani typed back. Yes, tomorrow we need to talk. She didn't elaborate. Whatever she had to say to Dominic Crane, it needed to be said in person. She owed him that much. As she rode the subway home, Imani tried to imagine what her life might look like if she continued down this path with Dominic. Would she always feel like an outsider in his world? Would Maya be thrust into a spotlight she never asked for? Would the whispers and stares ever stop? And most importantly, was Dominic Crane worth all of this complication? Deep in her heart, Imani feared she already knew the answer, and it terrified her more than anything. Maya was waiting up when Imani got home, her science textbook open but clearly forgotten. The moment Imani walked through the door, Maya held up her phone. Mom, you're on the internet. Imani's heart sank. You saw that? Jenna texted me after school. She said, isn't this your mom? And there you were with some guy in a fancy suit. Maya's eyes were wide with curiosity. Is that him, your boss? Imani set down her purse and sat beside her daughter on the couch. Yes, that's Dominic Crane, and we need to talk about this. Are you dating him because he's really handsome and Jenna says he's like super rich? Maya, it's complicated. That's what adults always say when they don't want to explain something. Imani smiled despite herself. You're too smart for your own good, you know that? She took a deep breath. Dominic and I have been having lunch together. That's all. We're getting to know each other. Do you like him? The simple question deserved an honest answer. Yes, I do. But our lives are very different. He runs a huge company. We live in different worlds. Maya considered this. Dad always said people are just people, no matter what they do or how much money they have. The memory of James's words brought a lump to Imani's throat. It was exactly the kind of thing he would say. Your dad was very wise, she said softly. So if you like this Dominic guy and he likes you, what's the problem? Out of the mouths of babes, Imani thought. For one thing, he's technically my boss, and that makes things tricky. Is he nice to you? Yes, very nice. Does he make you smile? Maya was watching her closely. Imani thought about the way Dominic's eyes lit up when he saw her, how he remembered little details from their conversations, how he made her feel seen for the first time in years. Yes, he makes me smile. Maya shrugged as if the matter was settled. Then I don't see the problem. If only it were that simple. But as Imani prepared dinner, she found herself returning to her daughter's straightforward logic. What if the only real problem was the one she was creating in her own mind? The thought stayed with her as she lay in bed that night, staring at the ceiling. For 5 years since James died, she'd put her own life on hold. Every decision, every sacrifice had been for Maya. Maybe it was time to consider her own happiness too. But Mrs. Reynolds's words echoed in her head. Men like him don't marry women like us. The warning stirred old insecurities. Was she setting herself up for heartbreak? By morning, Imani still hadn't reached a clear decision. She would meet Dominic as planned and hear what he had to say. Then she would follow her heart. Dominic paced, his office rehearsing what he wanted to say to Imani. He'd barely slept, his mind racing with thoughts of her. The tabloid photo had complicated things, but perhaps it was also a blessing in disguise. It forced them to confront what was happening between them, to define it before others did it for them. His phone rang, interrupting his thoughts. It was Alexander. "The board wants to meet this afternoon," Alexander said without preamble. "Emergency session." Dominic's jaw tightened. "About? You know damn well about what. The Peterson merger is on the line, and instead of focusing on saving it, you're having public lunches with the cleaning lady." "Don't call her that," Alexander sighed. "Look, I'm trying to help you here. The board is concerned about your judgment. They're talking about a temporary leave of absence. They can't do that. They can with enough votes, and after that tabloid photo, they might have them." Dominic's grip on the phone tightened. "I'll be there, 2 o'clock. And what about your friend? Will you be having lunch with her again today?" "That's none of your business, Alex. It became the board's business when your personal life started affecting our stock price. Fix this, Dom, before it's too late." After hanging up, Dominic looked at his watch. He was supposed to meet Imani in 30 minutes. This board meeting changed everything. He needed to warn her, to explain the situation, to make her understand what they were up against, because one thing had become crystal clear to Dominic overnight. He wasn't willing to give up on whatever was starting between them. Not for the board, not for the Peterson merger, not for anything. Imani arrived at their meeting spot 5 minutes early, her stomach fluttering with nerves. She'd chosen her words carefully, practiced them in the shower that morning. She would tell Dominic that they needed to step back, take time to think about what they really wanted. But the moment she saw him walking toward her, his face serious, but his eyes lighting up at the sight of her, her carefully rehearsed speech crumbled. "Imani," the way he said her name made her heart skip. "Thank you for meeting me." Of course, he guided her to a quiet corner of the lobby. "I need to tell you something important. The board has called an emergency meeting this afternoon. About us. What? Why would they care about who you have lunch with?" "Because of the tabloids, the stock price dipped. Investors get nervous when they think a CEO is distracted." He ran a hand through his hair, a gesture she was beginning to recognize as a sign of stress. "They're talking about a temporary leave of absence." Imani felt sick. "They want to remove you? Because of me?" "No, because they're short-sighted fools who only care about quarterly profits." His voice was bitter. "But I need you to know what we're facing. This isn't going to be easy." "Dominic, maybe we should—" "Don't say it." He took her hand, not caring who might see. "Don't say we should. Stop this before it begins. Because I can't stop thinking about you, Imani. About your smile, your honesty, the way you see me as a person, not a position or a bank account." Imani's breath caught. "I was going to say maybe we should be more careful, more private." "Is that what you want? To hide?" "No, but I don't want to be the reason you lose everything you've worked for." Dominic's eyes held hers intently. "What if I told you that before I met you, none of it meant anything? That I've been going through the motions for years, building an empire I don't even care about?" The raw vulnerability in his voice shook her. "I'd say that's a lot of pressure to put on someone you've just met." "You're right. I'm sorry." He squeezed her hand gently. "I just need to know if you're willing to see where this goes, despite the complications." "Because I am." Before Imani could answer, Mrs. Reynolds appeared beside them, her face grim. "Miss Lewis, I need you upstairs immediately. There's been a situation." Dominic frowned. "What kind of situation?" Mrs. Reynolds hesitated, clearly uncomfortable addressing him directly. "One of the board members spilled coffee in the executive lounge. It needs attention right away." Imani knew it was an excuse to separate them, but she couldn't refuse without risking her job. "I should go. The board meeting is at 2, Dominic said quietly. "Can we talk after? My office around 4? She nodded. "I'll be there." As Imani followed Mrs. Reynolds to the elevator, she felt a growing resolve. She was tired of other people dictating her life, deciding what was best for her. From Maya's simple question, "Does he make you smile?" to Mrs. Reynolds's warnings. About knowing her place, everyone had an opinion about what Imani should do. But what did she want? The answer came with surprising clarity. She wanted to see where things might go with Dominic Crane. Despite the differences in their worlds, despite the complications, despite the risks. For once in her life, Imani wanted to follow her heart instead of her head. The board meeting was exactly as unpleasant as Dominic had anticipated. 10 men and women in expensive suits, all looking at him with varying degrees of concern and disapproval. Alexander sat at the far end of the table, his expression grave. "We've called this meeting to discuss recent events," began Walter Peterson, the oldest board member and the most traditional. "Specifically, the public nature of your relationship with a temporary employee and the impact it's having on company perception." "My personal life is my own business," Dominic said coldly. "Not when it affects our stock price," countered Sarah Livingston, head of investor relations. "We dropped 2 points yesterday. Peterson Pharmaceuticals is getting cold feet about the merger." "Then let them walk. We don't need them." Alexander leaned forward. $300 million says we do, Dom. Be reasonable." "I am being reasonable. I'm having lunch with someone I enjoy spending time with. That's it." "The tabloids say otherwise," Walter said, sliding the gossip magazine across the table. "This looks intimate, personal, and with an employee, no less. The potential for a harassment lawsuit." "There is no harassment." Dominic's voice was sharp. "Imani and I have a mutual relationship based on respect and genuine interest." "Imani?" Sarah raised an eyebrow. "You're on a first-name basis with the cleaning staff now." The condescension in her tone made Dominic's blood boil. "Ms. Lewis is a widow raising a child alone. She's working toward a degree in education. She's intelligent, kind, and yes, we're on a first-name basis." The board members exchanged glances. "Look, Dominic," Alexander said, his tone placating, "no one is questioning Ms. Lewis's character. We're concerned about appearances, about timing. The Peterson merger is crucial for our expansion plans. And you think my having lunch with Imani will derail that? Old man Peterson is conservative, traditional. He's expressed concern about the company's leadership stability." Dominic laughed without humor. "I've run this company for 10 years, doubled its value, created thousands of jobs. But one photo of me with a woman, and suddenly I'm unstable." "It's the context," Walter insisted. "A CEO dating an employee creates liability. It suggests poor judgment." "We're not dating," Dominic said, though the words felt like a lie even as he spoke them. Whatever was happening between him and Imani, it was clearly heading in that direction. "Then end it," Alexander said, simply. "Make it clear to the press and to Ms. Lewis that there is nothing between you. Focus on the merger, and afterwards, if you still want to pursue this friendship, do it privately." The suggestion made Dominic's jaw clench. End things with Imani to appease Peterson, to satisfy the board's outdated notions of propriety. The very idea was offensive. "And if I refuse," Walter cleared his throat, "then we would have to consider a temporary leadership change for the good of the company. Just until the merger is complete." "You're threatening to remove me over this." "Not remove," Alexander said quickly. "A voluntary leave of absence. 6 weeks, tops. I would step in as interim CEO, secure the merger, and then you'd return with the company in an even stronger position." Dominic looked around the table, at these people he'd worked with for years, people he'd trusted, and now they were suggesting he step aside, all because he'd had lunch with a woman he was genuinely interested in. "I need time to think," he said. "Finally." "Time is a luxury we don't have," Sarah responded. "Peterson wants an answer by tomorrow. Either we demonstrate stability or the deal is off. So I have until tomorrow to decide whether to end things with Imani or take a leave of absence." Alexander nodded slowly. "I'm sorry, Dom, but yes." Dominic stood up, buttoning his suit jacket with deliberate calm. "Then I'll give you my decision tomorrow." As he walked out of the boardroom, his mind was already made up. But first, he needed to talk to Imani. She deserved to know exactly what they were facing. At 3:30, Imani received a text from Dominic. "Meeting running long. Can we meet at 5 instead?" My office, top floor. She responded with a simple yes and continued her work, trying to ignore the whispers and stares that followed her throughout the afternoon. The tabloid photo had made its way around the entire building, and now everyone knew her as Crane's cleaning lady. Even other temps were keeping their distance, as if her situation might be contagious. Only Tamika still treated her normally, sliding up beside her as Imani restocked supplies. "So, what's the latest? Are you guys official now?" Imani sighed. "There's nothing to be official about, we're just friends." "Friends don't look at each other the way he looks at you in that photo." Tamika lowered her voice. "And friends don't cause emergency board meetings. You heard about that? Girl, the whole building is talking about it. They say the board wants him to end things with you or take a leave of absence." The confirmation of what Dominic had told her made Imani's stomach twist. "That's ridiculous. We've only had lunch a few times." "It's not about lunch. It's about control. Those board people don't like that he's showing interest in someone who isn't part of their fancy circle." Tamika squeezed her arm. "But for what it's worth, I think you should go for it. The way that man looks at you. Honey, some of us wait a lifetime for that." As 5 o'clock approached, Imani changed out of her uniform back into her street clothes. She smoothed her simple black dress and took a deep breath. Whatever happened in Dominic's office, she was determined to face it with dignity. The executive elevator opened directly into a reception area where Dominic's assistant, Amanda, sat at a sleek desk. The young woman looked up with surprise as Imani approached. "Can I help you? I'm here to see Mr. Crane. He's expecting me." Amanda checked the computer, her eyebrows rising slightly. "Ms. Lewis?" "Yes, you're on his calendar. Go right in." Dominic's office was enormous, with floor-to-ceiling windows offering a spectacular view of the city at sunset. He stood looking out at the skyline, his back to the door, shoulders tense beneath his perfectly tailored suit. "Dominic?" He turned, and the smile that transformed his face at the sight of her made Imani's heart flutter. "Imani, thank you for coming." He crossed the room and took her hands in his. "You look beautiful." "How was the meeting?" she asked, already knowing the answer from his tired eyes. "About as pleasant as a root canal." He led her to a sitting area with comfortable leather chairs. "The board has presented me with an ultimatum," I heard. "End things with me or take a leave of absence." Dominic's eyes narrowed. "How did you know that?" "People talk, especially about the boss." She gave a small smile. "And apparently, about the woman he's having lunch with." "I'm sorry you had to hear it that way." He sat beside her, still holding her hand. "This isn't fair to you, any of it." "Life rarely is. The board is worried about the Peterson merger. They think our friendship sends the wrong message." "And what do you think?" Imani asked softly. Dominic's dark eyes held hers, intense and unwavering. "I think I've spent the last 10 years building a company I don't care about, making money I don't enjoy, impressing people I don't even like. Until I met you." He squeezed her hand gently. "Until I spilled tea on my suit and you apologized like you meant it. Until I saw someone who looked at me as a person, not a position." Imani's heart raced, but she forced herself to speak calmly. "Dominic, we barely know each other. A few lunches, some conversations. That's not enough to risk everything you've built, isn't it?" His gaze was penetrating, as if he could see straight to her soul. "What if I told you I've never felt this way before? This, alive. This, real." "I'd say that's a lot of pressure." "You're right. I'm sorry." He ran a hand through his hair. "I'm not handling this well. What I'm trying to say is that whatever this is between us, whatever it might become, it matters to me. More than the company, more than the board's approval, more than the Peterson merger." Imani felt dizzy with the weight of his words. "What are you saying exactly?" "I'm saying I want to see where this goes. Properly. Not just lunches between. Meetings, real dates, getting to know each other. Meeting your daughter if you'll allow it." The mention of Maya brought reality crashing back. "And what about your job? The board's ultimatum?" Dominic's jaw set with determination. "Let me worry about the board. I built this company. They didn't. If I need to remind them of that, I will. I can't let you risk everything for me." "It's my risk to take." He leaned closer. "The only question that matters is, do you want this too, Imani? Whatever this might become." Imani closed her eyes, her heart and mind at war. The sensible part of her, the part that had kept her, and Maya safe for 5 years, screamed that this was madness. But another part, a part that had been silent since James died, whispered that some risks were worth taking. "Yes," she said finally, opening her eyes to meet his gaze. "I want to see where this goes. But Dominic, we need to be realistic. Our worlds are very different. Worlds can change. Mine already has." He brought her hand to his lips, placing a gentle kiss on her knuckles. "Have dinner with me tomorrow night, a real date, no hiding. What about the board? I'll handle them. But I won't let them dictate my personal life. And I won't pretend I'm not interested in you to make Peterson happy." Imani took a deep breath. "Okay, dinner tomorrow." The smile that lit up Dominic's face was worth every doubt, every whisper, every disapproving look she'd endured. "I'll pick you up at 7, he said. "If that's all right?" "Yes." "But—" She hesitated. "Maya will be home. She's curious about you." "Already, after seeing the photo? I'd love to meet her, if you're comfortable with that." The thought of introducing Dominic to Maya made this all suddenly very real. But her daughter's simple words from the night before echoed in her mind. "Does he make you smile?" Yes, he did. And maybe that was enough for now. "I'll text you my address," she said. As she left his office, Imani felt lighter than she had in years. Whatever challenges lay ahead, and there would be many, at least she was finally living again, not just existing. The next day passed in a blur of anticipation. Imani had taken a rare day off, using some of her accumulated personal time to prepare for the evening. She cleaned the apartment, bought groceries, and spent an hour staring at her modest closet, trying to decide what to wear for dinner with a billionaire. Maya was beside herself with excitement when she got home from school. Is he really coming? Here, to our apartment? She looked around their small living room with new eyes. It's so normal. Imani laughed. Yes, it's normal. And yes, he's coming here. Just for a few minutes before we go to dinner. Can I ask him questions like, does he have a yacht or a private jet? Maya, no, you cannot ask him about his possessions. That's rude. Fine. Maya flopped onto the couch. But can I at least show him my science project? It's really cool. And if he's as smart as the internet says, he might appreciate it. That would be fine. Imani checked her watch. Now go do your homework while I get ready. At 6:30, Imani stood in front of her bathroom mirror, studying her reflection. She'd chosen a simple navy blue dress, modest but flattering. Her hair was loose around her shoulders, and she'd applied light makeup, just enough to enhance her features without looking overdone. Maya poked her head into the bathroom. Mom, you look really pretty. Thank you, sweetie. Are you nervous? Imani smiled at her daughter's perceptiveness. A little. Don't be. If he's smart enough to like you, he's smart enough to be worth your time. Imani's heart swelled with love for this wise, wonderful child. When did you get so grown up? Maya shrugged. Probably around the time I got these braces. At exactly 7 o'clock, there was a knock at their door. Imani took a deep breath, smoothed her dress one last time and went to answer it. Dominic stood in the hallway looking both powerful and oddly vulnerable. He wore dark jeans and a tailored blazer over a light blue shirt, more casual than she'd ever seen him, but still effortlessly elegant. In one hand he held a bouquet of simple white lilies, in the other a small gift bag. Hi, she said, suddenly shy. Hi. His eyes took her in, warm with appreciation. You look beautiful, Imani. Thank you. Please come in. As he stepped into their modest apartment, Imani tried to see it through his eyes. The comfortable but worn furniture, the small kitchen with its outdated appliances, the science project materials spread across the dining table. It was all so different from his world of penthouse offices and corporate luxury. But if Dominic noticed the simplicity of their home, he gave no sign. Instead, he handed her the flowers with a warm smile. These are for you. They're beautiful. Thank you. And this, he said, holding out the gift bag, is for Maya. As if summoned by her name, Maya appeared from her bedroom, her eyes wide with curiosity. "Maya, this is Dominic Crane." "Dominic, my daughter, Maya." Dominic extended his hand with the same respect he would show a business associate. "It's a pleasure to meet you, Maya. Your mother talks about you all the time." Maya shook his hand, trying, and failing to suppress her excitement. "It's nice to meet you too, Mr. Crane. Please call me Dominic." He offered her the gift bag. "I heard you're interested in science." Maya's face lit up as she took the bag. Inside was a sleek box containing a professional-grade microscope, the kind used in actual laboratories, not the toy versions sold in children's stores. "Oh my God, this is amazing." She looked up at him with shining eyes. "Thank you. This is way better than the one at school." "Maya, what do we say about expensive gifts?" Imani began, but Dominic touched her arm gently. "Please let her have it, it's educational." His eyes held a silent plea. "And it would mean a lot to me." Imani relented, unable to resist the joy on her daughter's face or the sincerity in Dominic's eyes. "Can I show you my science project?" Maya asked, already pulling him toward the dining table. "It's about cellular regeneration in planaria. They're flatworms that can regrow their bodies from tiny pieces." "I'd love to see it," Dominic said. And to Imani's surprise, he seemed genuinely interested as Maya launched into an enthusiastic explanation of her experiment. For the next 15 minutes, Imani watched in amazement as the powerful CEO of Crane International sat at her dining table, completely absorbed in her daughter's science project, asking thoughtful questions and offering suggestions. There was no condescension in his manner, no false interest. He treated Maya's work with genuine respect, and Maya was blooming under his attention, explaining her methodology with growing confidence. "You know," Dominic said, "Crane International has a science scholarship program for promising students. When you're ready for college, I'd be happy to put in a good word." Maya's eyes widened. "Really? That would be amazing." "Maya," Imani cautioned, "let's not get ahead of ourselves." "It's never too early to think about the future," Dominic said, his eyes meeting Imani's over Maya's head. The double meaning in his words wasn't lost on her. Finally, Imani glanced at her watch. "Maya, we should let Dominic and me get to dinner. Remember, Mrs. Garcia from next door will check on you at 8, and I'll be home by 10. "Okay. Have fun." Maya turned to Dominic. "Thank you again for the microscope. It's the best gift ever." "You're very welcome. I look forward to hearing about your progress." As they left the apartment, Imani felt a strange mix of emotions. Seeing Dominic with Maya, so natural and kind, had touched something deep inside her. But it also scared her. If this, whatever it was between them, didn't work out, it wouldn't just be her heart on the line now. Maya was already warming to him. "Your daughter is remarkable," Dominic said as they walked to his car. "So intelligent and passionate. She takes after her mother." "Thank you," Imani smiled. "She loved the microscope, but you really shouldn't. It's too expensive." "Nothing is too expensive if it encourages that kind of scientific curiosity." He opened the car door for her. Besides, seeing her face light up was worth every penny. As Imani settled into the soft leather seat of his luxury car, she decided to set aside her worries for the evening. Tonight was about getting to know Dominic better, away from the office and its complications. "Where are we going?" she asked as he started the engine. "There's a small Italian restaurant I thought you might enjoy. Quiet, private, excellent food." He glanced at her. "Unless you'd prefer something else." "That sounds perfect." The restaurant was indeed small and intimate, tucked away on a quiet side street. The moment they walked in, the owner greeted Dominic like an old friend, leading them to a secluded corner table. "You come here often?" Imani asked after they'd ordered. "Not as often as I'd like. Antonio's father was my father's friend. They came to America together as young men." Dominic's expression grew reflective. "This place reminds me of simpler times, before Crane International became what it is today." "You never talk about your family." "Not much to tell. My father built the company from nothing, worked himself to death doing it. My mother followed a year later. Broken heart, the doctors said." He took a sip of wine. "I was 28 when I took over. That's a lot of responsibility for someone so young. I was raised for it, groomed from childhood to be the perfect, CEO, his smile held a touch of bitterness. My father's greatest creation. Imani reached across the table and took his hand. And what did you want to be? The question seemed to surprise him. What did I want? I never thought about it. The company was always my destiny. Everyone has dreams, Dominic, even little boys being groomed for greatness. He was quiet for a moment, his eyes distant with memory. Architecture, he said finally. I wanted to design buildings, create spaces that would inspire people. He gave a small laugh. My father called it a frivolous distraction and hired more tutors for business economics instead. I'm sorry. Don't. I've made peace with it. Besides, I get to build things now, just companies rather than buildings. It's not the same though, is it? His eyes met hers, filled with a vulnerability she'd never seen before. No, it's not the same. The rest of dinner passed in a haze of delicious food, good wine, and increasingly personal conversation. Imani told him about her college dreams, cut short when she became pregnant with Maya, about James, his kindness, his courage, his death in a foreign land, about the struggle to rebuild a life for herself and her daughter afterward. Dominic listened with genuine interest, asking questions that showed he was truly engaged in her story. By the time dessert arrived, Imani felt like she'd known him for years, not days. I never asked, she said as they shared a tiramisu. What happened with the board? Did you give them an answer? Dominic's expression turned serious. Yes, I told them I would not be taking a leave of absence, and I would not be ending my relationship with you to appease Peterson. What did they say? They weren't happy. Alexander tried to talk me out of it. Peterson called personally to express his concerns about company stability. He took her hand across the table. But I made it clear that my personal life is not up for negotiation. The merger will succeed or fail on its own merits, not on who I choose to spend my time with. And if the deal falls through, if the board removes you anyway? His thumb traced circles on her palm, sending shivers up her arm. Then I'll start over, build something new, something that matters. The conviction in his voice was both thrilling and terrifying. You would give up everything? For this? For me, she didn't say, but the question hung between them. What good is everything if it means nothing? His dark eyes held hers. Imani, these past few days with you have made me feel more alive than the last 10 years combined. I'm not willing to give that up. Not for Peterson, not for the board, not for anyone. The intensity of his gaze made her breath catch. Dominic, I'm scared. This is happening so fast. What if it doesn't work out? What if we're too different? What if it does work out? He countered softly. What if our differences are exactly what make this right? Before she could respond, his phone buzzed. He glanced at it with a frown. I'm sorry, I need to take this. It's Alexander. He stepped away from the table, his voice low as he answered. Imani watched him, struck by the contrast between the powerful businessman he was with others and the vulnerable, thoughtful man he'd been with her tonight. Both were real. Both were Dominic. Could she truly fit into his complicated world? When he returned to the table, his expression was grim. What's wrong? She asked. The board has called another emergency meeting for tomorrow morning. Alexander wouldn't say what it's about, but I can guess. He took a deep breath. They're going to try to force the leave of absence. Can they do that? They can try. His jaw set with determination. But I won't make it easy for them. The rest of the evening was shadowed by this news, though they both tried to recapture the intimacy of earlier. By the time Dominic drove her home, a sense of impending crisis hung between them. He walked her to her door, taking both her hands in his. Whatever happens tomorrow, I want you to know that I don't regret any of this. Meeting you has changed something in me, Imani. Woken something I thought was dead. I feel the same way, she admitted, softly. But Dominic, if the choice is between me and your company, there is no choice. He touched her cheek gently. The company is just a thing. What I feel for you is... He paused, searching for words. It's real. More real than anything in my life has been for a very long time. Imani's heart raced at his touch, at the sincerity in his eyes. And when he leaned down to kiss her, she met him halfway, her arms sliding around his neck as his wrapped around her waist. The kiss was gentle at first, then deepened with a hunger that surprised them both. When they finally pulled apart, they were both breathless. "I should go," he whispered, resting his forehead against hers. "Before I don't want to." "Yes." But she made no move to pull away. He kissed her once more, softly. "I'll call you tomorrow, after the meeting. Good luck." As she watched him walk away, Imani touched her lips, still warm from his kiss. Whatever happened tomorrow, nothing would be the same again, for either of them. The board meeting the next morning was exactly the ambush Dominic had expected. All 10 members were present, along with the company's legal counsel. Alexander sat at the head of the table, his expression grave. "I'll make this brief," Alexander began. "The board has voted to enact Clause 27B of the company charter, which allows for the temporary removal of a CEO if they are deemed to be acting against the company's best interests." Dominic's jaw clenched. "On what grounds?" Continued pursuit. "Of a relationship with an employee, despite warnings about potential liability and reputational damage. For you had me followed." It wasn't a question. The fact that they knew about his dinner with Imani, about the kiss at her door, meant they had been watching him. "It was necessary," Walter said, not meeting his eyes. "Peterson called this morning. He's withdrawing from merger talks unless we demonstrate immediate leadership stability, by removing me. By placing Alexander in charge temporarily," Sarah corrected. "Just until the merger is complete. 6 weeks maximum." "This is a coup," Dominic said coldly, looking at each board member in turn. "And you all know it." "It's business," Alexander replied. "The Peterson merger is worth $300 million. That's our primary responsibility, to the shareholders. And what about loyalty? What about the last 10 years I've spent making all of you very, very rich?" The board members shifted uncomfortably, but no one spoke up. "You have a choice, Dominic," Walter said finally. "Take the voluntary leave of absence, or we put it to a formal vote. Either way, the outcome will be the same." Dominic stood slowly, buttoning his suit jacket with deliberate calm. "You want my answer? Here it is, I quit." A shocked silence fell over the room. "You can't be serious," Alexander said, standing as well. "Dom, think about what you're saying. I've thought about nothing else since yesterday, and I've realized something important." Dominic's voice was steady, his resolve absolute. "This company stopped being mine a long time ago. It became about stock prices and quarterly reports and making old men like Peterson comfortable. That's business," Walter insisted. "That's reality." "No, that's surrender." Dominic turned to the company lawyer. "Draw up my resignation papers. I'll clear out my office today." "Dominic, please," Sarah said, her voice softening. "Take some time to think about this. Don't throw away everything you've built over a temporary infatuation." His eyes flashed with anger. "Don't pretend to know my feelings, Sarah. None of you know anything about me beyond what I can do for your portfolios." He walked to the door, then turned back. "I'll expect my shares to be liquidated at market value, as per my contract. That should cushion the blow when Peterson walks away." As he strode out of the boardroom, Dominic felt lighter than he had in years. The decision he'd made, the first truly independent choice of his adult life, filled him with a sense of freedom he'd never known. His phone buzzed with a text from Alexander. "You're making a terrible mistake. Come back and we can fix this." Dominic didn't bother to respond. Instead, he texted Imani, "Can you meet me? It's important." Her reply came quickly. "Of course." "Where?" He thought for a moment, then smiled. "The place where we first had lunch." 1 hour. Imani sat at the small table in the cafe where she and Dominic had shared their first real conversation. Her hands fidgeted nervously with her napkin as she waited. The urgency in his text suggested the board meeting hadn't gone well when he walked in. She was surprised by his appearance. Instead of his usual perfectly tailored suit, he wore jeans and a casual button-down shirt. But it was his expression that truly shocked her. He looked relaxed, almost happy. "Dominic, what happened?" she asked, as he sat across from her. "I quit." The words were simple, direct. Imani stared at him. "You what?" I resigned as CEO of Crane International. He reached across the table and took her hands. The board gave me an ultimatum. Take a leave of absence or face removal. I chose a third option. But why? Your company, everything you've built, was slowly killing me. His eyes held hers with an intensity that took her breath away. Do you know when I last felt truly alive? Truly myself? When I was with you. When I saw how Maya's face lit up over that microscope. When we kissed last night. Imani shook her head, overwhelmed. Dominic, this is crazy. You can't throw away your career because of me. I'm not throwing anything away. I'm choosing something better. He squeezed her hands gently. For the first time in my life, I'm making a decision based on what I want, not what others expect of me. And what do you want? A life that means something, work that fulfills me, and, he hesitated, a chance to see where this goes with you if you'll have me. The sincerity in his voice made her heart race. This is happening so fast. I know. And I'm not asking for promises or commitments. Just a chance. His thumb traced circles on her palm. Imani, meeting you woke something in me that I thought was long dead. The part of me that dreams, that feels, that hopes. Tears pricked at Imani's eyes. I feel the same way. But Dominic, what will you do now? You can't just stop being who you are. He smiled. But that's exactly what I can do. I have enough money to never work again if I choose, but I won't choose that. His eyes lit up with an excitement she'd never seen before. I've been thinking about starting something new, something meaningful, maybe a foundation focused on education for underprivileged children, or a firm that designs affordable housing with dignity. Architecture, she said softly, remembering his childhood dream. Yes, building spaces that inspire people, not just house corporations. He took a deep breath. The point is, I have options. And for the first time in my life, I'm free to explore them. Imani felt dizzy with the magnitude of the changes happening around her. And where do I fit into all this? Wherever you want to, however you want to. His gaze was open, vulnerable. I'm not asking you to upend your life, Imani. Just to let, maybe part of it, in whatever way feels right to you. Before she could respond, her phone buzzed with a text. It was from Mrs. Reynolds. Your services are no longer required at Crane International. Final paycheck will be mailed. Imani stared at the message, then showed it to Dominic. His jaw tightened with anger. This is Alexander's doing. Punishing you to get to me. He met her eyes. I'm so sorry, Imani. This is exactly what I was afraid would happen. It's not your fault. She sighed, trying to process this new complication. But now I'm unemployed. Maya's braces, the rent, let me help. He held up a hand as she started to protest. Not charity, a job, a real one, with the foundation. I want to start. You're studying education, right? You could help develop programs, work with schools. The offer was tempting, but Imani's pride rebelled at the idea. I can't just take a job from you, Dominic. It would feel... She trailed off, searching for the right word. Like I'm trying to buy you? He suggested gently. Maybe. Or like you feel responsible for me. I need to stand on my own feet. He nodded, understanding in his eyes. Then what if I introduced you to some people I know in education? No strings, no interference from me. Just opening doors you deserve to walk through. This felt different. Not a handout, but an opportunity she'd earned. I'd appreciate that. Good. He smiled, that warm, transformative smile she'd come to cherish. And in the meantime, would you consider having dinner with me again, maybe this weekend? I'd like to take both you and Maya somewhere special. Imani felt the last of her resistance melting away. This man, this kind, complex, surprising man, had upended his entire life partly because of her. And instead of pressure or expectations, he offered only patience and respect. Yes, she said simply. We'd like that very much. As they left the cafe together, walking side by side in the warm sunlight, Imani felt a sense of possibility she hadn't experienced in years. The future stretched before them, undefined but full of promise. Whatever happened next, one thing was certain. For both of them, life would never be the same again. 3 months later, Imani stood in front of the full-length mirror in her new bedroom, hardly recognizing the woman who looked back at her. So much had changed so quickly that sometimes it felt like a dream. "Mom, are you ready?" "Dominic's waiting," Maya called from the living room. "Coming." Imani smoothed the simple but elegant blue dress she'd chosen for tonight's important dinner. As she left the bedroom, she took a moment to appreciate their new apartment, spacious, bright, and in a neighborhood with an excellent school for Maya. When Dominic had first suggested they move, Imani had resisted. It felt too soon, too much, like charity. But when Maya was accepted into the prestigious Science Academy, just blocks from this building, the practical benefits became impossible to ignore. The scholarship Dominic had helped Maya secure covered her tuition, but living nearby made everything easier. "You look beautiful," Dominic said as she entered the living room. He crossed to her and placed a gentle kiss on her cheek. "Ready for the big night?" "As ready as I'll ever be," Imani replied, butterflies fluttering in her stomach. "Are you sure?" "They'll like me. They'll love you," he assured her. "Both of you." Tonight, Imani and Maya would meet Dominic's grandparents, his only remaining family. At 80 and 82 years old, Giovanni and Maria Crane had largely retired from public life, but they remained important figures in Dominic's world. Their approval mattered to him, though he insisted it wouldn't change anything between them. "Maya, do you have your project photos to show Mr. Giovanni?" Dominic asked as they headed out. He'd taken to calling his grandfather Mr. Giovanni when talking to Maya, which always made the girl smile. "Yes, and the special microscope slides he sent me. I can't wait to tell him what I found." Maya practically bounced with excitement as they rode the elevator down to the waiting car. The relationship between Dominic and Maya had blossomed over the past months. He treated her not as an accessory to his relationship with Imani, but as a person in her own right, someone with dreams and ideas worth nurturing. He attended her science competitions, helped with difficult homework, and always listened to her theories with genuine interest. For Imani, watching this bond develop had been both beautiful and terrifying. Beautiful, because Maya had grown so much under Dominic's thoughtful mentorship. Terrifying, because each day both she and her daughter grew more attached to this man who had transformed their lives. "You're quiet," Dominic said, taking her hand, as they drove toward his grandparents' estate in the countryside. "Nervous?" "A little," she admitted. "It's just meeting your family makes this all so official." He smiled, that warm smile that still made her heart skip. "Isn't it already?" In many ways, it was. Though they maintained separate residences, Imani had insisted on that much independence. Dominic spent most evenings with them. They had developed comfortable routines, family dinners, weekend outings, quiet nights reading together while Maya did homework. And then there were the tender moments just between them, stolen kisses in the kitchen, long conversations after Maya went to bed, the growing physical intimacy that still made Imani blush to think about. But meeting his family felt like crossing a threshold, like acknowledging that this wasn't just a beautiful dream that might fade with morning light. The car turned through ornate gates and followed a winding driveway to a stunning Mediterranean-style villa. It was grand without being ostentatious, a home, not a showpiece. "This is where you grew up?" Imani asked, taking in the beautiful garden surrounding the house. "Until I was 10. Then my father built the mansion in the city." Dominic's voice held a touch of nostalgia. "But this was always home. Every Sunday dinner, every holiday. This is where I felt like a normal kid, not the Crane heir." As they approached the front door, it swung open to reveal an elegant elderly couple. Maria Crane was petite but straight-backed, with Dominic's dark eyes and a crown of silver hair. Giovanni was taller, still handsome despite his age, with an air of quiet dignity. "Nikki." Maria opened her arms, and Imani watched with surprise as the powerful Dominic Crane bent down to embrace his grandmother like a little boy coming home. "And you must be Imani and Maya. Come in, come in. Dinner is almost ready." The welcome was warm and immediate. No awkward formalities, no judging looks. Just genuine hospitality that put Imani at ease almost immediately. Inside, the home was beautiful but comfortable, filled with family photos and mementos. It was nothing like the sleek, impersonal penthouse Dominic had once occupied. "So," Giovanni said once they were settled in the living room with drinks, sparkling cider for Maya. "Dominic tells us you're studying education, Imani." "Yes, I've just started my final year. With the flexible schedule at the foundation, I can take classes." During the day, the Lewis Crane Educational Foundation had been Dominic's first project after leaving Crane International. Though he had offered Imani a position, she had initially declined, determined to find her own way. But when he structured the foundation to focus specifically on supporting children who had lost parents, something deeply personal to both of them, she couldn't refuse the opportunity to help shape its mission. "And you, young lady," Maria turned to Maya with a warm smile. "Dominic says you're quite the scientist," Maya beamed. "I won first place in the regional science fair last month. Dominic helped me practice my presentation every night for a week." "Did he now?" Giovanni exchanged a meaningful look with his wife. "Well, he was always a good teacher. Even as a boy, he had patience for explaining things." As dinner progressed, Imani watched with growing amazement at how different Dominic was with his grandparents. Gone was the serious, controlled businessman. Here he laughed easily, told family stories, teased and was teased in return. This was yet another side of him, perhaps the most authentic one of all. After the meal, while Maria showed Maya the garden, Giovanni invited Dominic and Imani to join him in his study. The room was warm and book-lined, with large windows overlooking the property. "Imani," the older man said once they were seated, "I hope you'll forgive an old man's directness, but I need to ask you something important." Imani tensed slightly. "Of course. Do you love my grandson?" The bluntness of the question took her by surprise. She glanced at Dominic, who looked equally startled. No, that's not—" "Hush, boy. I'm asking Imani." Giovanni's eyes were kind but penetrating as they held hers. Imani took a deep breath. They had been careful with the word love so far, both aware of how quickly their relationship had developed. But looking at Dominic now, seeing the vulnerability in his eyes, she knew there was only one honest answer. "Yes," she said simply. "I do love him." Dominic's face transformed with joy and he reached for her hand. Giovanni nodded, satisfied. "Good? Because he loves you. I can see it in everything he does, everything he says about you." The old man leaned forward. "You know, when Dominic called us 3 months ago to say he'd left the company, we weren't surprised." "You weren't?" Dominic asked. "Son, that place was killing your spirit. Had been for years. You did what your father asked. You took his company and made it even bigger. But you were never happy there." Giovanni's gaze returned to Imani. "Until you met this lady, and now look at you. You remind me of yourself as a boy, before all the pressure, all the expectations." Imani squeezed Dominic's hand, touched by his grandfather's words. "The foundation you're building together," Giovanni continued, "that's a legacy worth leaving. Not just more money for shareholders who don't care about you." He smiled warmly at Imani. "You've given our boy back his soul. Dear, for that alone you would have our blessing." "Thank you," Imani said, her voice thick with emotion. "But it goes both ways. Dominic has changed our lives too, mine and Maya's. He's given us so much more than material things. The best gifts never come in boxes," Maria said from the doorway where she stood with Maya. "They come in moments, in chances, in new beginnings." Later that night, as they drove back to the city, Maya fell asleep in the back seat, worn out from all the excitement. Dominic reached over and took Imani's hand. "Did you mean what you said? To my grandfather? About loving me?" In the dim light of the car, his face was vulnerable, almost boyish. "Yes," she said softly. "I've been afraid to say it. Everything has happened so fast, and sometimes I still can't believe this is real." "It's real." He brought her hand to his lips. "And Imani, I love you too. I think I've loved you since that first lunch, when you asked me about my dreams and actually cared about the answer." The simple declaration warmed her from the inside out. "We're quite a pair, aren't we? The cleaning lady and the CEO. Former CEO," he corrected with a smile. "Current architect of hopes and dreams." She laughed softly. I like that title better. Me too. The next morning, Imani woke to the sound of her phone ringing. It was Tamika, her former co-worker from Crane International. Girl, have you seen the business news? Alexander Jensen just got fired. Imani sat up in bed, fully awake now. What? Why? The Peterson merger fell apart spectacularly. Turns out Alexander was cutting corners, hiding problems in the financial reports. When Peterson found out, he pulled out completely and went to the press. Crane International stock is in free fall. That's terrible for the employees, Imani said, thinking of the many good people who worked there. That's not even the best part, Tamika continued excitedly. The board is practically begging Dominic to come back. They've issued a public apology and everything. After hanging up, Imani sat in bed, processing this news. Would Dominic want to return to Crane International, to reclaim the empire he'd walked away from? For all his talk about new beginnings, the company was still his family legacy. When she told him the news over breakfast, she watched his face carefully for signs of regret or longing. I know, he said calmly, sipping his coffee. Alexander called me at dawn. And? She asked, trying to keep her voice neutral. Dominic set down his cup and looked at her directly. And I told him I wish them well, but I've moved on. Just like that? You wouldn't even consider it. He reached across the table and took her hand. Imani, going back to Crane International would mean returning to a life that was slowly killing me, a life without joy, without purpose. His eyes held hers, steadily. Without you, I would never ask you to choose between me and your company. You didn't ask. I chose. His expression was serene, decided. The person I was 3 months ago, that cold, isolated CEO, he wouldn't recognize the man I am today, and I have no desire to become him again. Relief washed over Imani, not because she feared losing him to his old life, but because she feared he might sacrifice his own happiness out of some sense of duty or obligation. What did Alexander say? She asked. He was shocked. Offered me twice my old salary, a seat on the board for life. Dominic shrugged. When I declined, he asked what it would take, as if it were a negotiation. And what did you tell him? That some things aren't for sale. That I found what I was looking for all along. A life with meaning. Work that matters. People who love me for who I am, not what I can do for them. He smiled, that warm smile that still made her heart flutter. I told him I'm working on a different kind of legacy now. Maya bounded into the kitchen then, already dressed for school. Mum, don't forget I have the science club competition after school today. Dominic promised to come see my project. I'll be there, Dominic assured. Her front row. As Maya chatted excitedly about her project, Imani watched the easy interaction between her daughter and this man who had entered their lives so unexpectedly. The change in both of them was remarkable. Maya had blossomed with confidence, while Dominic had softened, learning to find joy in simple moments. After dropping Maya at school, Dominic drove Imani to her class at the university. As they pulled up to the campus, he turned to her with an unusually serious expression. I've been thinking about something, he began. That sounds ominous, she teased. Not at all. He took her hand. Imani, these past months have been the happiest of my life. Being with you and Maya, it's shown me what really matters. Her heart began to race. Dominic, I'm not proposing, he said quickly, correctly reading her expression. Not yet, anyway. I know it's still early for that. Relief and, surprisingly, a touch of disappointment washed through her. So what are you thinking about? The foundation is growing. We're making a real difference already, but I want to do more. His eyes were alight with excitement. I've been talking with an architecture firm about designing affordable housing communities with built-in educational spaces. Places where families like yours, single parents, working parents, can have safe homes and quality resources for their children. That sounds amazing. It would mean more travel, at least initially, site visits, meetings with community leaders. He hesitated. I'd like you to be part of it, if you're interested. Your perspective would be invaluable. Of course I'm interested. The project aligned perfectly with her studies and her personal experience. But what about Maya, my classes? We'd work around your schedule, and Maya could join us on some trips, educational experiences, real-world learning. He squeezed her hand. But I'd understand if it's too much change too fast. Imani thought about it. 3 months ago, she would have hesitated, would have worried about becoming too dependent on Dominic. But now, after seeing his commitment, not just to her but to Maya, to the causes they both believed in, those fears seemed less important. I'd love to be part of it, she said finally, as long as we do it together, as equals. His smile was radiant. I wouldn't have it any other way. As she gathered her books to head to class, Dominic called after her. Dinner tonight to celebrate? Sure. Where? I thought we might try that little Italian place where we had our first real date. The suggestion warmed her heart. Perfect. 7 o'clock? 7 it is. He leaned across the seat and kissed her briefly. I love you, Imani Lewis. The words still gave her a thrill. I love you too, Dominic Crane. As she walked to class, Imani marveled at how completely her life had changed in just a few months, from invisible temp worker to respected foundation director, from struggling single mom to woman in love, from surviving to truly living, all because she'd spilled tea on a man's suit and had the courage to say I'm sorry like she meant it. That evening, Dominic picked up Maya from her after-school competition, first place, naturally, and brought her home to get ready for dinner. He'd arranged for Mrs. Garcia to watch her while he and Imani had their celebratory meal. Mom's going to be so proud I won, Maya chatted as they rode the elevator to the apartment. Do you think the foundation could help start science clubs at other schools too? I think that's an excellent idea, Dominic replied, continually impressed by this remarkable child who saw possibilities everywhere. Maybe you could help design the program. Maya beamed. Really? That would be awesome. You have a unique perspective. You know what would get other kids excited about science? As Maya rushed off to change clothes, Dominic took a moment to look around the apartment he'd come to think of as home. Imani had insisted on keeping many of their old furnishings, not wanting to erase their history. The result was a warm blend of old and new, much like their relationship itself. His phone buzzed with a text from Alexander. Final offer. Name your price to return. Board is desperate. Dominic deleted the message without responding. There was no price high enough to make him return to that empty life. Not when he'd found something so much more valuable. When Imani arrived home from her late class, she looked tired but happy. Maya told me she won. That's fantastic. She was brilliant, Dominic confirmed. The judges were impressed with her research methodology. Just like her father, Imani said softly. James always had that scientific mind. It touched Dominic that she spoke so openly about her late husband. There was no jealousy in him, only gratitude for the man who had given the world Maya, and who had shaped Imani into the strong, loving woman she was today. He would be very proud of her, Dominic said. Of both of you, Imani smiled, her eyes misting slightly. Thank you for saying that, she checked her watch. I should get ready for dinner. At the restaurant, Antonio greeted them warmly, leading them to the same corner table they'd occupied on their first date. The familiarity of the setting highlighted how far they'd come since that night. So much has changed, Imani said, echoing his thoughts. Sometimes I still can't believe it. Believe it. Dominic raised his glass in a toast. To new beginnings. To new beginnings, she echoed. After they ordered, Dominic reached into his pocket and withdrew a small envelope. I have something for you. Dominic, you don't need to give me gifts. It's not exactly a gift. He handed her the envelope. It's an opportunity. Inside was a letter from the Dean of Education at her university, offering Imani a fully funded graduate position upon completion of her bachelor's degree. What is this? She asked, scanning the letter with wide eyes. The foundation is establishing a research fellowship for educators focused on supporting children who have experienced loss. The dean thinks you're the perfect candidate. He leaned forward. I only made the introduction, Imani. The offer is based entirely on your academic record and your work with the foundation so far. Tears welled in her eyes. It's everything I've dreamed of. You deserve it, and more. She wiped her eyes, laughing softly. You know, when I spilled that tea on your suit, I thought my life was over. I never imagined it was just beginning. That makes two of us. Dominic reached across the table to take her hand. Imani, there's something else I want to ask you. Dominic, still not a proposal, he assured her with a smile, though that day will come when you're ready. Then what? The first housing project is set to break ground in 3 months. It's just outside the city, close enough for Maya's school, but with better air, more space. He took a deep breath. I'd like us to live there, together, all three of us. Imani's heart raced. This was a big step, bigger even than the implicit promise of an eventual marriage. This was about creating a family, a home. You want us to move in with you? I want us to build a home together, he corrected gently. A place that's ours from the beginning. Not my penthouse, not your apartment, something new that we create together. The idea was both thrilling and terrifying. What about Maya? This would be a huge change for her. I've thought about that. She wouldn't have to change schools, and she'd have space for a real laboratory, not just the corner of the dining table. His eyes held hers. But Imani, I would never want to push either of you into something you're not ready for. If it's too soon, it's not too soon, she interrupted, surprising herself with the certainty in her voice. It's right. It feels right. The joy that spread across his face was worth any lingering doubts she might have had. Really? Really? She squeezed his hand. Dominic, when James died, I thought that part of my life was over. I focused everything on Maya, on survival. I never expected to feel this way again, to want to build a life with someone, to make plans for a future together. And now? Now I can't imagine my life without you in it. You've become essential to me, to Maya. Not because of what you give us or do for us, but because of who you are. She smiled through happy tears. So yes, I want to build a home with you. I want us to be a family. Antonio appeared with their meals, but neither of them moved to eat, too caught up in the moment. I love you, Imani Lewis, Dominic said, his voice thick with emotion. You and Maya have given me the greatest gift anyone could receive, a second chance at life, a real life with purpose and love and meaning. I love you too, she raised her glass again, to our future, together. Together, he echoed, his eyes shining with promise. Outside, the city lights sparkled like stars. Inside, in their quiet corner of the restaurant, two people who had once occupied entirely different worlds looked at each other across a table and saw the same thing. Home. 6 months later, Imani stood on the back porch of their new house, watching as Dominic helped. Maya set up her telescope in the yard. The spring evening was perfect. Clear skies, gentle breeze, the scent of newly planted flowers filling the air. The house itself was everything they'd dreamed of, spacious but warm, with a dedicated study room for Maya, offices for both Imani and Dominic, and large windows that filled every room with light. It stood at the edge of the new community they'd built together, a testament to what was possible when vision met compassion. 20 families now lived in beautiful, affordable homes surrounding a central green space with a community center and learning lab. Many were single parents, others were young families just starting out. All had access to quality educational resources, childcare, and support services. The Lewis Crane Foundation had expanded beyond their wildest expectations with similar projects, breaking ground in 3 other cities. Imani had completed her bachelor's degree and was now halfway through her master's program, specializing in educational support for children who had experienced trauma or loss. And Dominic, he had rediscovered the joy of creation. Working alongside architects, he helped design spaces that would nurture communities, not just house people. The cold, isolated CEO was gone, replaced by a man who laughed easily, who stopped to play basketball with neighborhood kids, who spent hours helping Maya with her science experiments. "Mom, come look," Maya called excitedly. "You can see Jupiter's moons." Imani joined them in the yard, bending to peer through the telescope. "Wow, that's amazing," Dominic says when I'm older. "We can visit the observatory in Hawaii where they..." can see even further into space. Did he now? Imani raised an eyebrow at Dominic, who shrugged with a smile. Educational trip, he said innocently. Maya wandered off to adjust the telescope's position, leaving Imani and Dominic standing close together in the gathering twilight. Happy? He asked softly, wrapping an arm around her waist. Incredibly. She leaned against him, savoring the solid warmth of his presence. Sometimes I still can't believe how much has changed in less than a year. For the better, I hope. So much better. She turned in his arms to face him. You know, I've been thinking about something lately. That sounds ominous, he teased. Echoing her words from months ago, she smiled. Not at all. I've just been thinking that maybe it's time. Time for what? For you to ask me that question you've been so patiently not asking. His eyes widened with understanding, then softened. With love. Are you sure? I've never been more sure of anything. She reached up to touch his face. We've built a home, a foundation, a community together. I think we're ready for this step too. Without a word, Dominic reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. Imani gasped. He'd been carrying it with him, waiting for her signal that she was ready. I've had this for months, he admitted, waiting for the right moment. He didn't kneel. Instead, he simply held the box in his palm and looked into her eyes with all the love that had transformed both their lives. Imani Lewis, you changed everything. For me. You showed me what really matters in this life. Will you marry me? Will you let me spend the rest of my days loving you and Maya, building a future together? Tears of joy filled her eyes as she nodded. Yes, yes, Dominic Crane, I will marry you. He slipped the ring onto her finger, a simple but elegant diamond that caught the last rays of sunlight. As he leaned down to kiss her, Maya's voice called out from across the yard. Mom, Dominic, did something happen? You're both just standing. To there. They broke apart, laughing. Yes, something happened, Imani called back. Come here, sweetheart. Maya ran over, looking back and forth between them curiously. What's going on? Imani held out her hand, showing Maya the ring. Dominic has asked me to marry him, and I said yes. Maya's eyes widened, then her face broke into a brilliant smile. Really? You're going to be my stepdad? She asked Dominic. If that's okay with you, he said, suddenly serious. Your opinion matters very much to me, Maya. Without hesitation, Maya threw her arms around his waist in a fierce hug. It's more than okay, it's perfect. As Dominic hugged Maya back, his eyes met Imani's over the girl's head. The love she saw there, for both of them, made her heart overflow with gratitude and joy. We should celebrate, Maya declared, pulling back from the hug. Can we call Grandma Maria and Grandpa Giovanni? And what about a party? Can I invite my science club friends? Dominic laughed. We can call my grandparents. Right now. And yes, we'll have a party, the biggest, happiest party this neighborhood has ever seen. Later that night, after Maya had finally gone to bed, exhausted from excitement, Imani and Dominic sat together on the porch swing, looking up at the stars. I never thought I could be this happy again, she said softly. After James died, I just focused on surviving, on taking care of Maya. I didn't dare hope for more. Dominic took her hand, his thumb gently caressing her new ring. Life has a way of surprising us when we least expect it. One moment I was the cold, feared CEO, and the next I was watching you apologize for spilling tea on my suit. He smiled at the memory. That moment changed everything. For me too, she admitted, though I was mostly terrified I'd lose my job. And now? She leaned her head against his shoulder. Now I've found a partner, someone who sees me, really sees me, someone who loves Maya like his own, someone who's helping me build not just a life, but a legacy that matters. You know what? My grandfather said when I called him tonight, after you and Maya went to check on dinner. Dominic's voice was thoughtful. What? He said, Nikki, sometimes the best things in life come disguised as accidents. I think he's right. Dominic turned to face her, his expression serious yet full of tenderness. What seemed like a small accident, tea on a suit, was actually the beginning of everything important. Imani reached up to touch his face, still amazed sometimes that this extraordinary man loved her. from spilled tea to shared dreams. "And this is just the beginning," he promised, leaning down to kiss her beneath the starry sky. As Imani melted into his embrace, she knew with absolute certainty that he was right. Their story, which had begun with a simple, sincere apology, was just beginning its most beautiful chapter. The woman who had once tried to remain invisible had been seen, truly seen, by the one person everyone else feared. And in that seeing, both of their lives had been transformed forever. Sometimes, Imani thought as Dominic held her close under the night sky, the most important moments in life aren't the grand gestures or carefully planned events. Sometimes, they're as simple as the words "I'm sorry" spoken with a trembling voice and an honest heart, and sometimes that's all it takes to change everything. The end.